All right, getting started. Why don't you put in the chat your name and where you live? It could be just your first name. And what part of the state are you hailing from? Um, and what kind of job are you looking for? What do you want your next opportunity to be? So your name, where you live approximately, and what kind of job you're looking for. Wow, we have a wide variety. Not sure is a viable answer. Cool. Great. So before I go any further, I need to tell you about other services that we offer. Besides the Career Force Center, where we can do resume reviews, help you with LinkedIn, do interview practicing, and if you're transitioning from one career to another, we can help you with that. There's also VA services, and if you have a disability, which is a wide range of things, we have vocational rehab. So please check out your local Career Force Center. All right. So you're here because you are looking for your next opportunity. One of the top 10 stressors in one's life is losing a job or looking for a job. That's right up there with graduating from college, getting married, having your first child. It's a stressful situation. Um, Change is hard. Some some of us identify who we are by what we do um, to make a living, and now we don't have that. So how do we identify? Um, Job is only one thing that defines you, so you need to think about who else you are, who else you are over and above your job. Think about what would help build your confidence. Um, so write in the chat one thing that you define yourself by other than your job title. So a lot of you have family, and that's a really good thing to have in your life. They could be very supportive. Dog trainer, that was great. Language learner, great. So it's really important to see yourself as a whole person and not just what you do to make a living, to pay the bills. Because as you know, that isn't necessarily stable. So now put in the chat one thing that you do that helps you feel confident as a person. What's one thing you can go to and do that will help you build your confidence? Great stuff. So many of you have other outlets and you know where to go and what to do to kind of be centered in yourself as a person. Um, one of the things that you can do is take an inventory about what is going on in your life, right? And many of you have many other things that you do that will help you. Great stuff. So there's an emotional roller coaster that's associated with job search, just as there is with dealing with grief, of being a new parent, of getting married. Um, and it's not linear and it doesn't move up all the time. It has a lot of ups and downs, just like a roller coaster. And that's really very normal. Sometimes when we're no longer have our job, we knew that it was happening, or because the company was sold, there was a reorganization, um, the business owner retired. Sometimes we're surprised. No matter how it happens, there's this aha moment where you know in your core that this is a big change, right? And then it's, why did this happen to me? Why, why me? Now what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to tell people when they ask me? Because a lot of times in a normal conversation, people will say, "Oh, what do you do to make a living?" Or how do you know, what do you do during the day? What did you go to school for? Are you working at that? So there's a lot of things in society that remind us that we don't have a job. Sometimes we're deer in the headlights and we don't know, oh my God, how do I find a job? Especially if we've had the same job for 10, 15, 30 years. The way one hunts for a job today is different even than one hunted for a job 5 years ago. So if you haven't had to do that, you might feel, oh my God, what lies ahead is a maze and I don't know how to work through it. And there are many, many things out there to help you. One automatically might think about Googling, right? But that might be overwhelming because there's so much there. But we will talk about ways that you can help and organize that. So why don't you put in the chat right now where you are on this emotional roller coaster? What part of it are you at right now? Take a moment and think about it. Where are you now? Okay. So this is a recovery model. Um, and one of the most important parts of this is recognizing your feelings and knowing that how you feel is okay. It's how you feel and your feelings about not having a job, about looking for a job, about all the things that are associated with a job loss is different than somebody else's. The way you feel about it is totally your feeling, and your feelings are okay. And then the next step is to figure out a safe outlet. So that might be taking long walks. That might be going to your faith center. That might be talking to other people. It might be going to a job club. There are many wonderful job clubs that are offered by Deed, and you can find those on careerforcemn.com. So put in the chat what your safe outlet is for sharing your feelings. Where would you go? What would you do once you recognize your feelings? Where would you go that was safe? Great. It looks like a lot of you have someplace to go. And, I wouldn't feel bad if your family is not one of them because they're probably impacted by what has happened just as much as you are. And it's hard for them to be objective. So sometimes it's good to have somebody outside the family. It's wonderful also if it's within the family. But just know that this process is normal and that your feelings are yours. And the best thing you can do is accept the change and move on. Sheila, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, somebody else can't. I just want to
Yeah,
make.
I know someone's having difficulties.
Okay. All right. So bouncing back can be hard. And it's the choice that you make every day that is important. How do you deal with change? You need to come, you need to deal with the change and accept it and figure out how you're going to move on because you will be getting interviews. That's not a if. You will be getting interviews and you need to show up as your best version of yourself. And you can only do that if you feel stronger, energized, and positive. It's really all about attitude. How do you perceive what is happening in your life? And how do you plan to go forward? And if you haven't centered yourself and accepted what has happened and the direction you're moving, that comes across in an interview. Um, so your attitude and how you deal and look at that is it's a skill, and there are ways that you can work on that. And some of you already talked about these things in the chat, talking with others, support groups, job clubs, exercise, positive self-talk and affirmations. There has been scientific research on the positive effects of keeping a gratitude journal. So either in the morning or at night, whenever it works into your schedule, if you write down every day 3 things that you're grateful for, that starts to rewire your brain. I know that it sounds, kind of kumbaya-ish, but there is scientific research about that. And it could be, I'm grateful for how long summer lasted in Minnesota this year. It could be, I'm grateful for being able to get outside and walk. I'm grateful for my dog and my dog's unconditional love. And then it could be as big as, I'm really grateful for friends who have reached out to me with possible job connections. I'm grateful for the people at the job club who helped me understand that I'm not alone. I saw that a lot of people in the chat are talking about looking for a job over 65, and we offer a class. One of these workshops is Job Search Over 50 that has a lot of helpful hints. And then volunteering is also a good one. And I noticed in the chat that quite a few of you said volunteering was a way to center yourself. It's really good to get outside of ourselves and see what else is there. And you need to figure out how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job? Because that causes a lot of stress. And that's where your local career force center can really help you. That list Sheila will send you. You can talk with somebody. Everybody's situation is different. And it's important to talk through it with somebody, and the Career Force Center staff can help you do that. So the first part of this talk, this workshop, has been about accepting where you are, understanding your feelings and knowing that they're okay, and then ways of staying positive. Sheila, are there any questions about anything that we've covered?
I don't see any questions yet at this time, Sandra.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So yeah, and just, know that you're not alone, and what has happened to you has happened to others, and there is somebody out there who shares your experience, and there are many people out there who are willing to help and be supportive. And you need to ask. I know sometimes it's hard to ask for help, but you'll be surprised what happens when you ask. People are more than happy to help you. All right, so now we need to have a game plan. We need to move forward. And there are many places where you can do assessments. CareerForceMN.com has a skill assessment and an interest assessment. There, you have to do your homework, fill in skills gaps maybe, and make the move, right? You have to decide what the game plan is. So here are some online tools at CareerForceMN.com. It's a really, really deep website. Has a lot of things in it. And you need to just check it out. It has a lot of things in it, and the skill assessments are a good place to do, and you can sign up for a free account. You also have to be registered on MN Works, the Minnesota Works, Minnesota spelled out, works.com.net to register for workshops, which you know because you registered for this one. So check it out. Another place is My Skills, My Future. It's another really deep website that you can find out about careers and transferable skills. So you can find out the skills that are associated with the position that you were in previously, and then you can match those skills with other places. I'm going to go back. Other places are, I don't never remember how to say it, onetonline.org. It's a very deep website. You can also go to Glassdoor. LinkedIn has a lot of skill assessments and things like that. And when you're filling in your skill gaps, you can do LinkedIn Learning. If you're not a premium member, there's sometimes a cost. Otherwise, if you have a Hennepin County Library card, I know that for sure. I would check with your library if you're not in Hennepin County. You can do LinkedIn for Learning free through the library's website, and that's a great way to fill in your skills. All right, so here's the job skill assessment tool. On CareerForceMN.com. So figure out if even if you're going to stay within the same field, it's good to understand your skills to assess those. Okay, so Dakota County can too also, that's great. And it gives you a language, and you can use that language in your resumes and in your cover letters. So it's always good, even if you think you're going to stay in the same type of job, to do a skills assessment, to do an interest assessment, to figure it out. And it also gives you options. So if for some reason it's tight in the position that you previous had, it would give you more options. and apply for other positions that have similar skills. All right, the all-important question. You've come to understand your feelings and accept them. You have options to get help and support, and you've assessed where you are with your skills and your interests, and now you want to prepare for the job hunt. You need to get organized, and we're going to talk about organization. We're going to talk about SMART goals and researching and networking tools. All of those are important components of searching for your job. The most important one is getting organized. Has anybody started to get organized for their job search? Say yes or no in the chat, please. Cool. A lot of yeses. Right. So just like the feelings that we have when we are no longer working are unique to us, so is getting organized. You need to figure out a system that works for you. There are many, many ways to do that, but you want to balance your job search activities and you want to keep really good records. Because if you're applying for multiple jobs and you have even multiple interviews, hopefully soon, you need to know what the job description is for that, the position posting for the job that you're going to be interviewing for, so you know how to prep. You need to know the company and you need to do research on that company. So some people use a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet with a column for the date you applied, the name of the file of the resume and the cover letter, any notes about research that you did about the company, when you sent it in, when you got a response, what response you sent and when you sent it. You can do that all in an Excel spreadsheet. Or some people want paper files. So they have a file folder with all that information in. Some people have index cards. Some people do it on Post-its. But you need to keep all of that. You also need a detailed record of your work history. And one of the things that will be sent, I think, is a form to get that information down, because all your job applications will ask for start date, end date, supervisor's contact, what you did at that job, just like you do on a resume. So usually they ask for a little bit more information than you put on your resume. So you need all that. You also need to record your networking contacts. You know, who did you talk to? What did you learn? Who suggested you talk to that person? Who did the introduction? Did you send a thank you? Which is really, really important. And then I forgot to add to the list of the places that you've applied for, you're going to need to keep a list of usernames and passwords. Most company online application sites make you register for an account, and each account has a username and password. I know that for sure the state of Minnesota does. And I would suggest that you get a new email address. They're free at Google, Yahoo, many other places that only use for job search. So then you don't have all that other garbage to sift through, and you know when somebody's contacting you in response to an application, an interview. It's one place that you can go and you don't have to wade through all the garbage, quote, quote, that one usually gets in a normal email account. And that way, and it also should be professional. So it shouldn't be Big Baba at or Princess, Pink Princess. It should be as close to your name, first name, last name at, and sometimes that's really hard to get, so you need to figure it out, but it should be really professional. Somebody asked if your supervisor is important in all job search. I think maybe if you're applying to be a cashier at Target, it might not be, but most professional jobs will ask you for your supervisor's name and either email or phone number. That's very important. Anybody have a unique way of organizing their job search information other than what I said or suggested? If the supervisor was laid off at the same time you are, I always put that in the text that adds Airtable for organizing. So we'll have to look that up. Let me make a note. Anybody else have anything? Well, yeah. There are probably even specialized apps. Yes, Sheila?
Yeah, we do have another question, Sandra. Someone wants to know how many years past do you keep of your jobs? So how far back should you go in keeping track of your jobs?
So they say 10 to 15 years on a resume. That's what we're suggesting. I don't think it hurts to go back 20 or some years just so you have it. You just never know. Life is a continuing change, which all of you know. And I think that it's really good to do that. Yeah. So, and if your supervisor was laid off, you can leave it blank. Is there another question, Sheila?
I was just going to check to see if you finished answering the question about the supervisor being laid off. I see someone else had the same thing. Their supervisor was laid off a
Yeah.
couple weeks before them. How to handle that?
So I worked for a company that was dissolved, and the owner just kind of evaporated from everywhere. And so I put her name in the name of my last supervisor, and then in the box on the application form, wow, one of them died. I put down that the company was dissolved and the owner relocated. Just so they know that I'm not trying to be evasive because I don't want them to contact her because I was let go from my job for some nefarious reason. So you might want to explain that in the place where you put the bullet points of your accomplishments. Yes, get a letter of recommendation. And you can ask past supervisors who are no longer there to write you a letter of recommendation and have it as part of your portfolio, which is talked about in another class. Yeah, and sometimes it's good to get personal emails and phone numbers so you can, if your past supervisor is no longer working at the same company, you can then put in their personal email and phone number, but I would not do that without contacting them first. You could say, you're now looking for jobs. Are they comfortable with you putting in that information? And sometimes they'll just want you to put in their email. Sometimes they don't care if it's both. But I would always ask if they're no longer working at the company and it's not a company email or phone number. Anything else, Sheila? There were some questions that popped by pretty fast that I didn't catch.
Yeah, I think you answered one of them about providing the contact information as long as they agree to it, the reference agrees to it.
Okay.
There's a couple other questions here. At what point in the application process do you submit or offer the letter of recommendation?
Only when asked. Sometimes they don't ask.
And then do you recommend bringing references to an interview? My resume indicates references upon request.
So I would remove that line from your resume. But if you have an in-person interview, it doesn't hurt to have them with you in case asked. But I would remove that line. That line is no longer recommended to have on resumes. So one of the ways that one can kind of organize life and keep yourself accountable is to have SMART goals. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So in order for a goal to be a real goal, it has to be specific. It can't be, I hope to have a job by the end of the month. It has to be specific. So I will apply for 5 jobs each week, right? It has to be measurable. So that's what the 5 is. And then it has to be achievable. So if you don't think that you can submit 5 job applications in 1 week, don't set yourself up to fail, right? Why add that burden of guilt to how you're already feeling? It's okay to have small goals and to achieve them. Everybody is different. I'm a list maker, and I like to make a list of what I'm going to be doing every day and things that I need to get done. And I like crossing them off. And sometimes when I do a task that I had forgotten to put on my list, I'll put it on my list and cross it off just so I have the satisfaction of the end of the day seeing everything that I achieved, right? And it needs to be relevant to your job search. So having coffee with friends every Wednesday might not be relevant to your job search. Applying for a job, getting your resume done, going to networking meetings, those are all relevant, right? And then saying when you're going to complete it is going to be hold you accountable. And another thing you can do is you can have an accountability partner. So it could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be somebody from a job club, it could be a former coworker who is also not employed at the same company anymore. You could meet up once a week, every other week, and say, these are my goals. This is what I want to achieve. This is the timeline. And then you meet up again and you say, this is what I achieved, what I did. This is why I didn't achieve these goals, and these are my new goals. So sometimes it helps to have an accountability partner. And it's sometimes helpful when you say, I didn't achieve it for these reasons, and your accountability person pokes at you and wants to know why, right? And then it helps you think through, is it an achievable goal? Did I set myself up for failure? Do I need to scale back? So you need to do that. The next thing you need to do is you need to do research, right? Because applying shotgun method to companies just to say that you applied for 5 jobs in a week is not productive, because they might not even be places that you want to work. They might not even be places that would pay you the salary that you want. So it's always recommended that you have a list of 5 to 10 top companies that you want to work for. And then you study the company, right? What's the size, the history, the location? The location is important. You might apply for a company that will be an hour and a half commute from your house. If that sounds exciting, then you apply to that company. If that sounds like 3 hours in the car to learn a new language while you're on your drive is not what you want to do, then you don't apply to those companies. What are their financial situations? Is there a potential for growth, right? Is their mission statement and philosophy something that you can live with? Is it a place that you would feel comfortable working, right? Figure out labor market information. Right now, the tech field has kind of bouncing up and down. If you have a tech job, is that where you want to stay? Or can you use those skills in another field, in another type of job? Figure that all out before you start applying. It might sound like it's postponing getting a job, but it really helps you in the long run because then when you apply to that company, you already have some of your research done when you get that interview, right? So this is, and there are many places that you can find this stuff out. You can find it out on LinkedIn. Most bigger companies and some smaller ones have a LinkedIn page and they tell you about the philosophy. They give you a link to the company website. They tell you even about the degrees people had who have worked there. They tell you about where they are from. It's a really great place to do company research. Glassdoor is also a great place. I know that St. Paul, it used to be the building, the Summit Business Library used to be right by the Ordway. I'm not sure where they're moved to, but St. Paul Public Library has a business library, and I'm sure the Minneapolis Library does. Your local library probably has a database that you can only access at the library that will give you all kinds of information about companies. So do your research. And if you have to go to the library, it's an opportunity to get out of the house. Sometimes we feel almost imprisoned in our house because we spend way too much time in front of the computer. So it's a really good mental activity just to get out of the house and work someplace else. Whoa, that didn't do anything. All right. So these are places that you can research. Um, Informational interviews and conversations are great places to figure things out, and LinkedIn is a great tool to use for that. There's a book called The 20-Minute Networking Meeting, which is a really good outline on how to do informational interviews. Uh, I suggest, many libraries carry that book. It has a great thing to help you for, and it is especially helpful for introverts. Informational interviewing is really hard for introverts. So check that out. Sometimes your local career force center knows about the companies in their area and they can help you with your research. Has anybody, I'll put it in the chat. Has anybody done any research about companies? I don't have access to the chat. We'll send it in the letter. So of those of you who have done research about companies, what have you found the most useful? How do you get your information? What is the most useful tools for you? I had never thought about Wikipedia. That's really great.
Oh, yeah, I was going to see, I see a lot of company websites that they go to.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, LinkedIn.
Yep. Company
Mm.
websites are a really good place to get a peek into to the culture at the company because they're presenting themselves in a way that shows who they are. Cool. I'm glad that so many of you have been doing research. So this, if you notice on the bottom of the screen, this presentation was first done in 2010. And networking cards might seem as a dinosaur. They are still very helpful. They're easier to carry around than your, wow. Somebody found a false website, I mean, a false company that they almost applied for. So the networking card is a lot easier to carry around than your resume, and it gives people information. But there are apps that you can get on your phone, and I was going to do research about that, and I still will. If I find anything between now and when Sheila sends out the email, I will have her add them. But the important thing is you need a way for people that you meet to remember who you are and to know what you're looking for and what skills you have to offer. And there are multiple things that you can, multiple places that you can go um, to do that. So here's a sample. Um, and you can get cards printed up at Office Max. There are multiple of sites. I usually use Got Print, but there are quite a few of them. You can even buy business card paper for your printer, but you should try to remember who you give your card to or share your information with, so you can thank them if they connect you with somebody, or just to send them a thank you for the fact that they took it and they're willing to keep you in mind if something happens. The more you can stay relevant in people's minds, the more likely you are to get a lead to a hidden job or a lead to somebody to talk to. And it's just common courtesy to thank people when they help you, to reach out to people and let them know. But a business card is one way to do that. And they're calling it a networking card here. But so LinkedIn has virtual card function. I'll have to check that out. Thank you for that. Anybody have any questions about the networking card or anything else we've talked about to this point?
We do have one more question, Sandra. Um, Someone's asking, how do you look at the culture of a company by their website? I have not found this an effective method at all.
Oh,
I'm curious by what you mean by getting a peek.
so they probably depict people the way they want people dressed at the company. They most likely have their mission statement on there. Um, they talk about what's important to their company. I know on the Target website, they talk about how their employees volunteer. So then you know that volunteering is important to the company. Um, they probably have access to articles that talked about the company. So there were probably more articles about the company, but they're highlighting what's important to them. You kind of sometimes have to read between the lines. I always find it interesting if they tell you about employees who work there. So who's the CEO, the CFO, who's the head of HR. Some companies tell you that, some companies don't. How can you contact the company? So sometimes you just have to kind of explore the website and see what's there and read between the lines. I hope that's helpful. So you need to also get together your portfolio, and some of you are in creative professions and you understand what a portfolio are or is. Some of you who aren't might not think that you have a portfolio for your job, but a portfolio can include things that people ask questions about. It could include a list of your references. It could include letters of recommendation. It could include a PowerPoint that you did in your job, as long as it doesn't contain proprietary information. It might be if you did a really great Excel spreadsheet that was useful for your company, you might want to just have the layout of that without all the information. So there are always components of our job that we can highlight and show people. So it's really a good thing to have prepared and to bring to an interview if the interview is in person. Um, if the interview is virtual, it's still good to have. It might help you refer to something if you have it. And I do recommend online portfolios, especially for creative professions. That's an expected that you have an online portfolio. So if you're a designer, an interior designer, if you do anything that you have a visual or audio representation of your work, it's important to have that. A lot of times, presenters or speakers are expected to have a recording of a presentation that they did, so people can see how they come across, how they answer questions, how they deliver the information. So references. We talked about those. Somebody asked about them. Choose them carefully and ask people now if they would be willing to be a reference. You might want to avoid any reference that would be controversial. So that might be the minister of your faith community. That might be somebody who is in a leadership position for the NRA. That might be somebody who is a member of the Democratic or Republican Party. If your job isn't specifically related to those things, you might want to think twice about using them as a reference. It's hard to say who will be looking at your references and how they feel about certain things. If it's important for you to show up 100% of who you are, you can do it. We're advising that you don't, but think about it. It could also, remember, it could be peers. So for references, you need their name, their title, the company that they work at, how they're related to you. So were they a coworker? Are they a friend? Were they a client? Did they work in a different department? And then you need their contact information, including their phone number and their email. You always need to ask permission, and remember to thank them for agreeing to do that. And then when you get an interview, I always suggest that you send your references even before the interview. Yes, their current employer is important. And then if they're not working at the company that you worked at and they were your previous supervisor, I would include that information. And then once you do a job interview, you send your references the job posting, the resume that you sent, and the cover letter you sent. After the interview, you tell them what was talked about in the interview. So if they're contacted, they can highlight what was viewed important based on the interview. Any other questions about references?
I'm not seeing any others at this time, Sandra.
Okay. So this is a summary of what we talked about, right? So you have to think about job loss as something that you're recovering from. You have to decide or recognize that your feelings are okay and they're unique to you. And then you have to face that challenge every day of what are you going to do to find another job. You have to stay positive, and you have to develop a game plan that works for you, as well as get organized for what works for you. If you Google job plans for finding a new job, you'll probably get thousands and thousands of suggestions. What's important is what works for you. Remember SMART goals, remember to research, and remember to gather your tools. And that includes a basic job history. So you have that when you need it to fill out applications. All right, so we have 6 minutes for any other questions.
Yeah, feel free to pop them in the chat if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I don't see any at this time. Or if I missed one, please put it in there again. Sometimes they scroll by pretty fast.
Yeah, and please, please remember that the Career Force Centers are here to help you. There are people there who help people get through this, even if it's just to talk through with somebody about how you were let go and how you're going to present that information. It's an incredible resource, and there'll be a list in the email that Sheila sends out with phone numbers and websites. So call, and many Career Force Centers are willing to meet with you virtually. So you don't have to go there if you're 20 or 30 miles away. But use the people there, use our staff. And then remember, if you're a vet, there's a special program for vets. There's a Robert Willis does a vet job club every week, and he deals exclusively with companies that are vet friendly. So he has a really great job club every week. And then there's vocational services, which helps people with any kind of disability, including mental as well as physical. So check out those resources.
Yeah. And then Bernie, I did put the phone number in there for the Duluth Career Force if you want to check out networking groups around there. And then I did include the link to our Career Force calendar where there are some online networking events as well.
And
And
sorry.
I'll put that link in the follow-up email.
Another great place to network is any professional organizations for your profession. So I know that there's a training net group, professional group, there's IT professional groups, there's medical professional groups. So that's a really great place to go and network. And those people a lot of times are in jobs and know of job openings. And so once they get to know you through the networking activities, they're more likely to share. And also, what's great about those things is that they get you out of the house, away from your computer monitor and the deer in the headlight gaze that you might have occasionally. And it gets you in touch with people. There's anything else?
Yeah, we've had a few questions come in now. Is there a class for how to explain change of employment due to a termination?
Nope, you need to do a one-on-one with somebody at the Career Force Center because every situation is different. And so that's where the professionals at the Career Force Center come in.
Yeah, and we'll put the link in the email, how to contact your local career force.
Yeah.
And then do you recommend using a subordinate as a reference?
Yes.
Okay. And then someone just wants to confirm that you said references should be provided before the interview?
Nope, you should just have them with you. You only provide references when asked. You do not give them. I'm sorry if there was confusion about that.
Yeah, it's always good if you can make the first impression, like going to the interview, rather than having them contact your references first. So if it's possible, provide them after the interview when they
Right. And
request
also,
them.
people know that you're only going to provide references that say good things about you. I also always recommend that you have so it's different than the endorsement section on LinkedIn. There's a recommendation section on LinkedIn. If you have people recommend you there, that means they took the time to write something. And sometimes hiring managers check out LinkedIn to see what's there.
Okay, and then someone said, did you say to mention how you know your reference, if not a former supervisor?
Right. So if they're a friend, if they're a client, if they're a coworker, if there's somebody in the same business, sometimes that's important. And one of the reasons why it's good to do subordinates, especially if you're applying for a management job, it talks about your management style. So a subordinate can talk about how you managed and how it was to work with you.
Okay, and see, we have about a minute left. Are gaps in jobs still relevant? How long is too long between jobs?
So that varies from situation to situation. Sometimes you'll need to address that, sometimes you won't. Um, the gap because of COVID is easily explained, but again, that's a case by case situation, and you need to talk to someone at your career force center.
Okay, we have lots of questions coming in. I'm sorry, now we're not going to get to all of them, but please, contact your local career force. They're excellent at, answering these types of questions and working with you one-on-one. There's a lot of good questions in here, and a one-on-one appointment would be really great. And we'll put that information in the email so you know how to schedule one of those one-on-one appointments.
Great, and thank you everybody for spending the last hour with us. And please check out the other workshops at the careerforcemn.com website. Hope you all wish you all the best in your search and hope you can find a way to make it fun. Bye.